Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Kim Smith of Oregon is a Democratic candidate in the 80th Assembly District. The primary is August 11th. Kim, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
On your social media posts, you said some strong things like the Black community is in peril. Legislators in office, quote, do what is safe. I guess my first question, Kim, what should be done to combat racial disparities in Wisconsin? Please.
The first thing I think about is the wage gap. It's a pretty big gap. And I think that we've avoided talking about singling out the Black community and promoting policies and laws that support business ownership and home ownership, because through those, that's where wealth comes from. Really singling it out and coming short of reparations, but really focusing in on the Black community, home ownership, business ownership. Those are things I think our legislature has shied away from because it's such a hot topic.
Okay. In light of some videos of how some police officers have been treating those in custody, Governor Evers put forth a package of bills that, among other things, would ban chokeholds, police reforms, and uniform training standards for police. Do you support the governor's package, Kim?
Yeah, I absolutely do support the governor's package. I think it was really great. I did not understand that there wasn't a standard of practice in terms of like the chokeholds and certain, things you might use to subdue someone. I had no clue. So I think it was a really great move on his part. I know that he might come up against some pushback from the police unions. I also would like to encourage him to further address the training hours. I would like to see more hours of additional training yearly and addressing mental health emergencies in particular.
Okay. What's your position on both medical and recreational marijuana?
Yeah, so medical cannabis, I absolutely support. I don't believe it is up to me as an individual to tell someone whether or not they should use cannabis as a means to help maintain their illness. I think that people are concerned about the risk or the damage that could be done, but pharmaceuticals also have side effects. And I completely understand. But again, it's not up to us to decide that. As for recreational cannabis, I have heard from some of the people in District 80, and they are concerned with cannabis becoming a commodity and that it would be focused on creating access for children, but easily accessed by children, such as the Juul, like the vaping, things that have flavors to them. And that's a serious concern because a lot of the tobacco products are placed where kids can see them easily. And, it's an issue that I want to respect, but I absolutely would support recreational cannabis use with a really solid policy to accompany it.
Okay, thank you. If the governor's right and the pandemic is going to cut $2 billion with a B, we're going to be $2 billion short in state tax collections. If you're a member of the assembly, you got tough choices. Do you cut spending? Do you raise taxes and fees? What's your position, please?
Yeah. So oftentimes, the first thing cut is going to be K-12 because it's one of the biggest parts of the budget. To kind of help combat that, I think that we should look at not increasing the biennial budget that second year. I think that would be a really good idea. And maybe, freezing legislative wage increases would be a really great idea to just kind of get us through. And I was listening to Missy Hughes talk on WisconsinEye, and she said a few really profound things that really struck a chord with me. And that whatever we put forward now is really going to make or break the next, 2 to 3, 5 to 7 years. Sure. And to we have a chance to recreate and refocus, and that we should make policy in a thoughtful way. So while it's easy to kind of make estimates now, I don't have the data that would give me an idea to make policy in a thoughtful way. But I think there are small ways. I mean, should we increase taxes? Possibly, but is it going to be equitable for all? We could cut some places, absolutely. But we just have to make sure that there's equitableness there as well.
Okay. New subject. The Constitution says the party in power in the Capitol will draw the next congressional and legislative district lines. The governor, as you know, wants a people's commission to draw the lines and then forward them to the legislature to be enacted. Who's right?
Yeah, neither.
Neither. Okay. Please.
No, actually, I think that's a really great start. What I would like to see is the People's Commission, but then another oversight advisory committee to help guide them. It's very similar to what Iowa's doing. And then really the legislature doesn't have much say other than to correct errors. Making sure that it is a bipartisan effort is incredibly important, to make sure that we have fair maps and that there is some continuity to our representation. I feel like sometimes that's changed over the course of the last 20 years, depending on where you live, obviously. So I would like him to go even further with that.
Okay. On property taxes, Wisconsin is a high property tax state, which is why there's caps, there's limits on what schools and local governments can levy in property taxes. Now, of course, referendums allow you to exceed those limits. If you're a member of the Assembly, do you want to keep those property tax caps and limits in place, or you want to do away with them?
See, I feel comfortable with actually keeping them. So here in Oregon, there was a referendum to build onto the high school, and it went through. I think the community knows the needs of the community and will oftentimes vote to support certain projects that are needed. I really enjoy that local control, giving people local control over where their money goes.
Okay. Some say the reliance on local governments on the property tax means we should consider alternative revenue sources for local governments. Maybe broadening our 5% state sales tax to some now exempt products and services, maybe even giving local governments the ability to levy a half-cent sales tax. Is it time to consider revenue options for local governments, Kim?
I think so. And I think that, in our process of legalizing cannabis, we don't want to tax the medical cannabis. We don't want to tax sick people. But if it were to get to the recreational level, that is a decent tax source. But also we want to make sure that whatever taxes we have are going to be equitably distributed, because your standard of living isn't going to change by much. People aren't going to be getting raises. And so if we're being taxed more, that's going to be putting pressure on, I used to be a single mom about 15 years ago. That would put pressure on me if I was buying food or services. So we, like, Missy Hughes said, whatever we do it in a thoughtful way.
Okay. We have not been able as a state to find a stable source of revenue for our highways. Governor Evers wanted to raise the gas tax. It's now 30.9 cents per gallon. Hasn't been raised in 10 years. Could you vote to raise the gas tax?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I want to say yes, but again, is it equitable? I mean, I know that in the last few years, the title to my car, registering my car again, that went up by $30. And that puts pressure on families, low-income families. So I would be open to doing so, but not a definite yes.
Okay, appreciate it. A couple of questions on COVID. COVID hits, it cuts state and local tax collections. It really hits the public healthcare programs. We've seen hospitals are on the front lines in the COVID fight. I guess if you remember the assembly voting on the next state budget, should hospitals be an even greater priority than they might be in the current state budget?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that Governor Evers was able to take the money that he received from the CARES Act and really put money towards that, because that's a huge, hole that we're going to have. They lost out on millions of dollars. It's going to be an issue. And I think that we should definitely revisit what is necessary to help those hospitals who are struggling in that next budget. And maybe even, like I said earlier, that tax freeze or that tax increase for the second year to 2021, maybe look to putting that money towards helping out those hospitals.
If a business follows all the health and safety COVID rules and regs of WEDC or the national CDC, should they be immune from frivolous lawsuits?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's happened yet, but it's bound to happen. And we need small businesses are in peril. They're closing left and right. And this should be the last thing that they worry about. And so we absolutely do need to protect them. I agree with that.
Okay, if a local government is authorizing a major public works project, should they be required to give a preference to Wisconsin companies? And here's why I ask. Yeah. A study found in 2015, out-of-state contractors got public works contracts for $72 million, but that more than doubled to $146 million by 2018. Should local governments have to give preference to Wisconsin companies?
Yeah. See, this is also a tough one for me, because I also understand that you want to pay, as the government, the least amount. So if the least amount for a project is over state lines, do we do what's best for our budget or what's best for the economy? It's navigating those two things. And something in my heart tells me that I want to protect Wisconsin businesses because we are in this together. So I think I would probably lean toward supporting Wisconsin businesses being the first in line, at least, to receive the first, bid for that. And, if we wanted to use outside, state businesses, maybe there's a tax on that. That's, an option.
Two final questions. We've talked about a bunch of issues. What other issues are important to your campaign that we haven't had a chance to talk? Do you want to mention any now?
I would love to. Yes,
please.
Thank you for asking. So I have had a chance to walk around this district and get to know the people, and it has been fantastic. Whether I win or lose, I have walked away a changed woman. With the information I've received. So one of the things that was really concerning is that people who are on fixed incomes, and actually this question is on what you gave me, and so I wanted you to ask it, so I'm glad you asked this question. Fixed incomes is a huge issue. And look, I'm 41. I'm going to be on a fixed income within the next 30 years, probably. This is going to be an issue that's going to be, will have to be addressed. So the more difficult way to ease those property taxes for people on fixed incomes might be to make a constitutional amendment and separate them from the rest of Wisconsin. But an easier way, I was told by one of the people in District 80 who had worked for the Revenue Department, is to actually give a tax credit on the income taxes. So I think that's a really great way to do it. And I think it's something that really needs to be addressed, something new to me I didn't know about. I wanted to share. As for anything else in the district, I think, farmers are also in peril. Big farming districts, District 80, most of it is rural. It's hard to get to all those people. It's 45 minutes to an hour across this district, and there's tons of farms. And I don't want them to think that I've forgotten them. They are important as well.
Okay. And then you're challenging someone that's in office.
Yeah.
You want to talk about differences between you and the incumbent? Why are you the most qualified?
I think we have a lot of the same beliefs. I think we align very much so. But I want to do my best to eliminate that hyperpartisanship. That hyperpartisanship in the Capitol is preventing good legislation from rolling through. And it is affecting the Black community, which is, very important to me, as I'm biracial. My father is Black, my mother is white. And this community is very important to me. And when we have having white allies in the Capitol isn't enough. We as the Black community are needing to step up and point out where there are racial discrepancies in the way that we create legislation. And I think that, I just feel like I wanted to step up and be a part of that.
Thank you. Kim Smith of Oregon is a Democratic candidate in the 80th Assembly District. The primary election is August 11th. Kim, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you now.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.